I never imagined I would be sitting in this chair, alone in an empty apartment, scrolling through my wife's photos and posts on Instagram. Time had passed, but I still couldn't believe that she was no longer by my side. Not because she left me for another man, but because she left me for Instagram. I couldn't believe that someone so close to me, someone I trusted with my heart, could be so absorbed in the virtual world that real life started to take a backseat. We had always been a team, building plans, dreaming together, and now here I was trapped in a fragmented reality where she spent more time checking likes and comments than engaging with me. Chapter 1. The Shift. The change didn't happen overnight. At first, I didn't even notice it. We'd had our fair share of busy days, work pressures, and the usual stresses of life. But slowly, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. A little more time spent on her phone, a few more pictures taken for the gram, but I convinced myself it was just a phase. I was wrong. Her obsession grew like a shadow, lingering around our relationship, slowly consuming everything. The moments we used to share over dinner, the late night talks, the small gestures of affection, they all started to fade into the background as Instagram became her primary focus. She started spending hours scrolling through feeds, looking at pictures, engaging with influencers, and posting her own perfectly curated photos. It wasn't about capturing memories anymore, it was about building a personal brand. She wanted to be admired, to be seen, to be validated by a world that existed outside our apartment. I tried to talk to her about it. "Don't you think we've been losing touch?" I'd say. But the response was always the same. "I'm just networking, growing my audience." It wasn't just a hobby anymore. It became her reality. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. The first real crack appeared when I noticed she had started comparing herself to influencers, people who lived in a carefully constructed world of filters, poses, and perfection. She'd scroll for hours, admiring their lives, wishing she could have the same. The more she immersed herself in this online world, the more disconnected she became from the person sitting right across from her in our living room. I could see it in her eyes. The spark was gone. She wasn't looking at me with the same warmth or affection anymore. Instead, she was lost in the digital haze, searching for validation from strangers on the other side of the screen. And then it happened. One evening, after a particularly silent dinner, I saw it. A post, a picture of her smiling with a caption that read, "Living my best life." No mention of me, no acknowledgement of our relationship. I wasn't even in the frame. It was like I didn't exist. "Why didn't you post a picture of us together?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but the hurt was evident. She shrugged, not even looking up from her phone. "I just didn't think about it." In that moment, I realized that the woman I had fallen in love with had changed. She wasn't the person sitting across from me anymore. She was someone else, someone who was living for the likes, the comments, the approval of people who didn't even know her. Chapter 3. The escape days turned into weeks, and the distance between us grew wider. I tried to fight it, tried to rekindle the spark, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. Her attention was always elsewhere. I remember one night I watched as she sat next to me on the couch, scrolling through Instagram, her face illuminated by the blue light. "I miss you," I said softly. She didn't respond, not at first. After a moment, she turned to me with a forced smile and said, "I miss you too, but I'm working on something important." I could feel the distance between us widening. And then came the day she announced she was going to an influencer event, a weekend getaway to collaborate with others in the same community. It felt like a final nail in the coffin. She was already gone, physically and emotionally, and yet she was still here, in the house with me, but not really with me. Chapter 4. The Truth. The day she left was the hardest. It wasn't dramatic or filled with anger. It was quiet, almost too quiet. She packed her things, and as she was about to walk out the door, she turned to me and said, "I think it's time for me to focus on my career. I need to build something for myself." I stood there speechless, watching her walk away, knowing that I had lost her to a digital world that I couldn't compete with. She had traded our life, our love, for likes and followers, It wasn't the first time I had heard her talk about Instagram as if it was her passion, her future, but I never thought she would choose it over us.